Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale from Apple Podcasts.
Ooh, we fancy. Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central.
Round the Hay Bale is brought to you by...
With gardening season in full bloom, Kelzyme certified organic products are just what your garden needs.
From fertilizing your orchards to feeding your soil, Kelzyme's calcium-based fertilizer gives your plants the essential minerals they need to thrive.
Applying Kelzyme to agricultural soils and water has been proven to increase plant and crop yields while making vegetables and grains healthier and more nutritious.
In addition, Kelzyme can help restore the nutrient balance in animals when they are fed plants grown using Kelzyme in both soil and water.
To check out all of Kelzyme's organic products, visit kelzyme.com.
And use our promo code HAYBALE for 10% off of your purchase.
Parental guidance is recommended. These programs may be unsuitable for younger children, as we will be discussing animal breeding. Show content may not be suitable for children. Parental guidance is recommended.
Grab a cup of joe and gather round the hay bale with your hosts, Alicia from Country Mama Musings, Casey from Ormsby Farms, Lisa from Yogi Hollow Farm, and Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Now, here they are. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hello and welcome to Round the Hay Bale. I'm Alicia.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Monica.
And Casey won't be joining us this episode.
So today, on today's episode, we are talking about animals in heat with friend and homesteader Rebecca from Halpert Farms.
But before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Kelzyme.
Again, a huge thank you to Kelzyme. And let's welcome to the hay bale, Rebecca. Welcome in, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Well, we're really glad to have you here. And I, of course, talk you up all the time because you're one of my most favorite people out there. And you have been so helpful to me in my homesteading journey when it comes to my pigs. But I'm sure a lot of folks out there, would be helpful if you talked about like what kind of animals you have on your farm.
Sure. Ever since I was a little kid, since I could draw, I was always just drawing farms. I always wanted to have a farm. I wanted 2 of every animal, have like a whole Noah's Ark thing going on. And I grew up in Hawaii and it's very expensive to have land. So we had the opportunity to move to Texas, and I got a horse was my first animal I got. And then I got some chickens as a birthday present from my kid. And I had a little tiny backyard, and we had 2 little chickens. And then I've got 10 acres here in Texas. And so of course I kept the chickens, and then I got goats, and the goats didn't work out very well. They were a lot of work. And so everyone that has goats, I really feel for you. So I wasn't ever really into pigs, but then I said, I wanted kuni-kunis and I wanted zebus. I did a lot of research, and, we had only 10 acres. So we wanted something small that could sustain on the land and easy to care for. And so finally I decided, let me go ahead and get the kuni-kunis. And we got our first pair we drove to Louisiana and got them from a nice lady named Paula from Liberty Farms. And we just fell in love. So we mainly breed kuni-kunis, and we've got about 23 adults or breeding stock that we have. And then we recently, when COVID hit, we got some miniature zebu cows. Now we have the cows, and we've had 3 calves on our farm. So, and we have 5 adults and then 2 babies right now. And then I've got my horse that I had from moving to Texas. So we've got 2 horses, a donkey. We've got 2 ducks, I breed and show salmon Faverol chickens as well, and they're a rare breed. And then our newest additions are our red bourbon turkeys that we got from Lisa. She mailed me 6 eggs all the way from South Dakota and packed them, meticulously bubble wrapped each one individually. They were in a carton, but very well packed. And I incubated them, and all 6 hatched, which is pretty amazing. And they are living outside, and they're actually, guess what? They're going to go to the Fort Worth Stock Show and be on display in the kids display thing. So they're going to live at the stock show for a whole month, and the Fort Worth one is a pretty big event.
That's exciting.
Yeah, your turkeys are going to be famous and traveling around.
I am still in awe that not only did all 6 hatch, but they all made it there perfectly. And yes, I packed it up like I was paranoid. But it was just funny because I know it was every day for like 3 days. I went and got eggs, and then boom, ran to the phone, mailed it to you.
And we were all on pins and needles because she had let us know what she was doing. So we were all anxiously awaiting, did they make it okay? And then to find out that they all hatched.
And then
that's wonderful. And what a life they're going to have. How neat.
Yeah. And they all grew up to be adults, and things get crazy on the farm and the weather and everything. They're living in not the best pen for them, but finally got them moved into the big run, and they're like flying around, and they love it in there. But yeah.
They've gotten really big. Have they gotten their beards yet?
This thing. No, that's not the beard. Is that the beard?
The beard.
Yes. It's like a little half thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you don't breed your horses, right?
No, I have a mare now that I just got. It's my first time having a mare. I've always had geldings, which is a castrated boy. So there is a chance that maybe one day I'll have a foal, but no plans right now. She's only 5 years old.
Awesome. So, this episode is about talking about heat and signs of heat. Alicia, you look like you had a question.
I don't have a question. I'm in awe with everything that Rebecca has shared with us so far that she's got going on at her farm. For just, how many years have you been into this, Rebecca?
I moved here in 2013, and then we got the Coonies in 2016.
Wow, you've done a lot. That's really, really impressive. So I'm sure you've got a lot to share with our listeners. I'm sorry that I may have appeared that I had a question. I was sneaking a bite of ice cream just so our listeners know. But I don't have a lot of experience with breeding here on my farm. We just kind of rescued things that had already been exposed. So I'm going to turn it back over to the other ladies, and I'm going to chime in when I can in between bites of ice cream. Shh, don't tell anybody. But I'm finding your story so far very, very intriguing.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little, the pigs are the big thing for you, right? Because that, I know you have multiple litters every year. And if you want to talk a little bit about like signs of heat in the pigs, that can help our listeners.
Yes. So Coonies, and this should hopefully be, it's true for all pigs. They go into heat about every 2 to 3 weeks. And sometimes you can't tell at all. Sometimes it's very apparent they're in heat. So you just got to know your animal and know what you're looking for. Telltale sign is they get kind of swollen back there, and you're like, oh man, that doesn't look normal. But they're usually in heat. The females can get a little more aggressive. Supposedly, if you're pushing down on their back, they're supposed to stand still, which means they're going to stand still for the boar. I don't really have enough time to, go around pushing down on all my pigs' backs and make decisions about it. But all right, so I don't really do that, but we'll look for, if they're looking swollen back there, and then they'll kind of nudge the other pigs around too. And some of the females that we have will go and mount the other females, or they'll even mount, if you have them together in a breeding pen and the boys are being lazy, they'll go mount the boy and be like, hey dude, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So they have a very high drive to get bred. And that's why we do sell some of our pigs as pets. And so a lot of times, or we require them, if we sell a female as a pet, that they get spayed, because They will try to escape to go get bred. It's going to happen every 2 weeks. We had one of our best pigs, Clover. She had ovarian cysts, I guess. And so she was never able to get pregnant, even though we tried and tried. She passed away earlier this year. And we had a necropsy done. So they had seen a cyst in there, and we thought maybe she was having cysts, and that's why she wasn't getting pregnant. But she would go into heat all the time, and she would chase Josh around at feeding time, and she would try to jump on him and mount him. So she wouldn't do it to me. But so I warned, people, if they wanted a house pig, you don't want a 200-pound pig chasing you around the house, trying to, hump you like a dog.
Question, who's Josh?
Josh is my boyfriend and the guy that makes the farm happen.
Josh was not another coony pig. I just wanted to clarify that, because I was like, wait a minute.
Josh is the farm dude.
Yes, he's the swole farmer. I think that's
swole farmer. That's right. He's a big dude. And so it's just, I'm laughing, that she's saying Clover was jumping up on him, because he's the one who takes care of everybody,
Yeah, and he was scared of her. He's like, oh, Clover's in heat. You've got to go feed her. So I'd have to go feed the pigs if Clover was in heat, because
farm dudes need love too. But you got to watch out for those coony pigs. So they do get a little aggressive, and they'll let you know. Then there's
they'll let you know, and so that's and even we have a little house pig, Riley, that lives in the house, and she just went into her first heat because her little back end was swollen, and it looks really painful. I always feel bad when it's like that. And some of the pigs, you'll really see it. And others, it's not as noticeable.
I would imagine for our listeners listening in who haven't had exposure yet to farm animals, but maybe they have a dog, it would be very much like your female dog going into heat, what you would witness on that back end there, that is that telltale sign that they're in heat. So for those who don't know, I mean, the anatomy of many of the farm animals on that backside is very, very similar to what you would see on the back of your dog, correct?
Yep, very true. And with dogs, it's every 6 months. So a lot of people also don't realize, oh, wow, the pig's going to heat a lot sooner. So that's another reason.
Well, yeah, I didn't know 2 to 3 weeks. So with as many pigs as you have, because you said you had 23, is that how many you said you have now? Do you keep records on which ones go into heat, which ones have been exposed? Do you have a system that you keep in place?
Yes. So right now, we're a little bit behind, but we've got our breeding plan scheduled or we know who we want to pair up together. And so what we do is we'll put them in breeding pens together and kind of lock them, a boy and a girl, up. So we know they're the ones breeding, and we don't, we just kind of watch. Josh which he's out there feeding, he's going to watch, and we have a calendar. So we just write down if we see any activity of that stuff going on. And then you'll know it's 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days that you should have piglets. And then if for some reason you don't have piglets on that day, then you pretty much can just add another 3 weeks to that. And that should be your next due date.
So I think it's important for listeners to also realize that you really want to know these signs and symptoms, shouldn't say symptoms, but signs when your female is coming into heat, because if they are in the area where they could be exposed to another male, maybe it's their father or their brother, you don't want inbreeding, especially with pigs, because you can get birth defects. So it's important to know these telltale signs so you can separate your herd or your flock or whatever animal it is you're working with, so that you avoid those pitfalls, because that can be some very serious negative drawbacks if you're not paying attention to your animal's cycles, correct?
Very true. Yes, it is. And pigs can breed through fences. They can get pretty crafty. And so 2 years ago, we were still working on some of our pens, and we were taking fences down and this and that. And Uno, our oldest boar, and our first boar we got, and he's such a lovable guy. He's everybody's favorite, but he somehow, was the dad to almost every single one of our litters that year. And I don't know how he did it, because we still had everybody separate, but just because we were moving people around so much and getting new fences put up, he figured it out somehow. And so we have the piglets, and he's a ginger and black. So, and we, we would know, oh, these piglets should probably be this color, and everybody was ginger and black. And I'm like, okay, Uno can't be the dad, but in Coonies, you send off your DNA. And sure enough, he did get one of his daughters pregnant. And so all of that litter we had to, wasn't breeding quality because they would be inbred too much.
So the moral here is that piggies especially are just like ornery little teenagers at high school. You got to watch them every single second, because they'll take advantage of you, even with the fences up. And yes, we have a potbelly pig, and he is a product of inbreeding. And so he does not have cloven hoofs. He only has one toenail for each hoof. And that has caused him great issues through his entire life. And it's sad, because that could have been avoided. I love him. I'm glad he's here. And we've had him for almost 9 years, just love him to death. But it's sad to see what he's gone through in his life because somebody did not pay attention, or they were reckless intentionally. It's hard to say. But, there's a responsibility that you have to uphold when you have animals on your homestead.
Agreed.
Are you sure he's not part mule foot? There's actually a pig breed that has one toe.
No, I've taken him to the vet, and they've looked him over. It's not all 4 feet. Just the front, and he actually has like a third toenail that's fused in there as well. And what's sad is that it affects how he walks. So a lot of the time he walks on his knees, because it's very painful for him, because he cannot stand correctly on those front feet. But he's the sweetest little thing. And Monica, down there in Texas, she's fortunate, or I should say I'm unfortunate that I don't live closer, because she recently had a little baby potbelly that needed a home. And I think Papa Jim, my husband, would have been pretty upset if I lived closer, because that little baby would have been coming home with me.
She even told me to come get him. But
he's a turd. We got him to his new home yesterday. Well, I wanted to add really quick too. I wanted to speak to the line breeding, inbreeding thing. I will say that that's something that you can safely do if you know your genetics. You can breed father to daughter, father to daughter, son to mother, with controlled circumstances. And it's not going to be completely messed up. And in the sense of, sometimes you're looking for specific qualities. I wouldn't continue to do down the line as much, but we breed cattle, we breed rabbits, and we breed pigs. And now, while we have never bred a daughter piglet to her father yet, because we've never kept a daughter, that's something I had considered, is keeping the girl and then holding my daddy. Now, at this point, we're just going to go ahead and get rid of our stock husband, our husband and wife is what I call them, our boar and sow this year. We're going to get rid of our big ones and start with a fresh bloodline coming in boar wise, so that we can have 2 brand new ones, and they're going to come up together. Like, they're going to be siblings, but they're not. They're just going to be raised together. But our rabbits, we basically line breed our rabbits. Now, we breed them for meat specifically. We're not showing them. We're not, doing anything else with them besides, sometimes we sell them for pets if people want them and they're like, oh my gosh, your rabbits are so cute. Cool. You can take them if you want them for pets, because they are sweet as all get out. And by breeding the babies back to, a lot of times we'll keep a specific girl that we really like. If we have done it with 1 year, we'll do a daughter, we'll keep a daughter, and we'll breed back to the father only if we have to, only if for some reason the other ones aren't. We don't breed brother to sister, but we breed daughter to father, or we'll breed daughter to half brother sometimes, depending on who the father was. But we keep pretty accurate records, so we know what does and what is it? I can't think of the boys now. But anyway, we know what the bucks. Thank you. We know what the bucks and the does are, and we know when it comes to even with our cattle, we know what we're dealing with when it comes to our sires and stuff. So, but line breeding isn't, it can be really a taboo subject. But it needs to be addressed, that it's something that people do, and you can do it, but just carefully and monitored, and know that it's not, gonna be completely like, you're gonna get someone with like 3 ears and it only and 5 eyes. You're not gonna get a spider cow if you breed the cow to its father. the following year. Yeah, we're not going to get unicorns from this, though people probably would love that nowadays. But
Or a duck.
or a duck toe. That was definitely something that probably shouldn't have happened. But most of the time, if it's monitored and it's taken care of that way, you're going to be fine. And so, yeah, breeding wise, if you know your animals, and most farmers know their animals and are careful with it, then you're good to go. So, but I just wanted to say something about that too, because I'm just imagining people on here like, well, I breed such and such. Okay,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. Just
Right.
know from Monica, even if I'm the only one on here, it's okay. It's okay.
Yes.
If
Yeah,
something-
definitely.
But everybody
And-
needs to know that's not across the board for all species, though. You have to know your species and know what's acceptable for specific breed lines or specific, whether they be horses, cattle, pigs, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's dogs.
I mean, look, we're raising our turkeys this year, and we've got 3 mamas that laid all the eggs this year, and the daddy wasn't related to any of them. And we ate the daddy for Thanksgiving. So now one of his sons, which is going to be one of the sons, and I didn't keep track of which girl was laying which egg. I wasn't like, oh, well, Blindy, this was your egg, and put a little B on there for her. And then Brownie's egg was, BR for Brownie. But the 3 main girls that laid eggs this year, I hatched out, and I've got, a bunch of them. And so one of those boys, who is affectionately known as White Pants now, because why not? That's a great name that an 8-year-old likes to give a turkey that we're going to keep and breed for the year. He's the son of one of those mamas. But you better believe he's going to be our big boy. He's going to be our big man on campus, breeding everybody. And that's who we're getting eggs from this year. All those girls. And
Well, my
so,
turkeys are all brother sister, so
yeah, you're all inbred. You're in trouble.
yeah,
over
they're
there.
gonna be inbred, but that's
but
fine.
but we're eating them. So and I mean, I'm just going to say it. It's just going to happen. And so I'm not necessarily selling them or putting them.
Right.
They're not going to the Fort Worth Stock Show around here. Okay, we're not fancy like the South Dakota Texans over there. Okay, but.
Well, if you could tell me how you know which one is Blindy and which one is Brownie's like egg, that would be awesome, because I can only tell by the color, and not by the turkeys, but by the chickens.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you which one's laying the egg.
So
I can say Golden Comet, Rhode Island Red,
Yeah.
White Leghorn. That's about.
So actually, you can see the difference in some of our turkey eggs, because I do have one red bourbon, and then I have 2 other ones that are like mixed, and they actually all look a little bit different. Their eggs are slightly variated, but there's no way I could pinpoint each one of them unless I kept them in different pens,
Right.
or my son pulled them out one at a time and he could see who laid which one, because they do specifically like different nesting boxes. And I know that the one girl's a little snotty and she doesn't like the same nesting box as everybody else. So I could probably pinpoint Brownie's eggs. But other than that, I'm not doing it. Okay. I'm just not saying, hey, I know this is who it is. But yeah, needless to say, they're going to go in our bellies. And so I'm not worried about too much.
And speaking of fowl, I belong to several chicken groups, and it's always, I don't want to say funny, because I don't want to make fun of anyone. I always find it humorous and endearing when you see somebody post a video or post something on Facebook or something, and they're saying, oh, look, my little chicken loves me so much, she squats down for me to pick her up when I walk up. And everybody always thinks it's just the sweetest thing, that this chicken just wants to be loved. And so they squat when I walk up to them because they know I love them so much. No, that's your chicken letting you know that they're wanting to be bred, since this is the topic of our show tonight. And so, we have a lot of homesteaders who are just now getting into this, and that is their gateway is the chickens. And so, it's important for them to know that when your chickens are acting that way, there's a reason for it. It's not because they want you to cuddle them. They want some other kind of loving. And so then it's up to you whether you get a rooster or not. And another thing that people seem to think when they get into the chickens is you have to have a rooster to have eggs, and that is not true. You just have to have a rooster if you want fertilized eggs, and you can still eat the fertilized eggs. You're not going to be really able to tell a difference. But you can go ahead and put those in an incubator, or let your broody hens sit on them and end up with some little babies. But all of these different animals that everybody wants to start bringing in on their homestead, that's one of your telltale signs there for your hens. when they squat down, it's not because they're just like, hey, pick me up and carry me around the yard because I love you so much. It's because they're looking for a little action in the barnyard.
So Rebecca, you were talking earlier about the pigs and the signs of breeding. And, I know for me as a newbie, the hardest part was, intelligence wise, what you're looking for, right? You do the research like any responsible owner would before they're going to breed an animal, like Country Mama was saying earlier. But sometimes it's not that obvious. Sometimes it is just not that obvious. And I've heard that sometimes it's harder in gilts versus sows and so on. So I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that or your experience.
Yeah, well, I would think, so Panda was our first, she was a gilt when we got her, but she was already bred. And so we didn't see any of that, but I don't think we can tell when she goes into heat. Can you tell when Panda goes into heat? The boys can. The boys can. The boys can. So that's what we're doing. And I know like you were going and, moving your boar in when you knew they were coming into heat and then leaving them alone and then putting him back. And so that is a lot of work. And a lot of people, like if you have cows and you want to rent you're going to get a bull, usually they'll throw the bull, you'll rent a bull for 2 or 3 months is like the normal time frame, because then they know they're going to go into at least 2 heat cycles. So they should be able to get bred. And so I think if you're having trouble telling that your pig or animal is in heat, the easiest way is just going to be leave them together longer and then try to watch if, he's mating, if they're mating. And usually, that when they go into heat, they'll become more active. The boy's going to start messing and sniffing around and trying to nudge the female, and they'll usually breed, they'll mate, and it kind of takes a lot out of the boy, and then he's just going to sleep. So you got to kind of catch it when it happens. Usually for some, most of the time people are able to do it. A lot of people have kids, and a lot of people make their kids kind of go and watch the animals and report back. Yeah, usually it's just me and Josh, and just you and your husband. So I mean, we have to go out there and look a lot more. And we have cameras also in our pens too. So I can sit at my desk job at work and I can watch my animals on the camera, and I can like text Josh and say, hey, this is happening. And then he's like, oh, and he's got to go out there. Somehow the pigs knocked over the water barrel the other day. I'm like, the water barrel's knocked over. They have no water. So he ran out there and, fixed it. But yeah, a lot of times it's hard. So this is what we do. So we try to have our litters in the spring. So November, we're usually trying to put our pigs into their pens so they can, if they're not in heat, then they'll go into heat, and depending on how long it'll take, 1-800-RENT-A-BULL. We will, so then we just kind of know then we'll have piglets in the spring. And then that way we don't have to pay attention too much, but we do. We really try to hopefully catch them if they mated, and we write that down. And then there's other people that will say, oh, don't put the boys in with the girls, because then they'll exert themselves too much and they'll, get worn out, or I don't know, it's just too stressful on them.
Yeah.
But we haven't really ran into that. And if we did see like, the boy is just trying to mate over and over and over again, and any of that, we would, we'd move him. But we haven't run into that with the coonies.
Yeah, if I was a larger scale farm like yourself, obviously I wouldn't be able to do that. And me, I was having piglets this year, so I was making sure it happened. That was why I was out there supervising. One thing I will say is that I did notice a huge difference between what I thought were signs, because there was a lot of vocalizing over the fence. There was a lot of interest, and they were different behaviors, because I was watching behaviors since I couldn't see physical signs. And, my boar Sherman gladly goes for a visit and loves it. He dutifully walks to the paddock. And it was funny because the big difference was there was a lot of noise and showmanship and fighting, so to speak. But when it came down to the actual act of mating and breeding, they got down to business right away. And I do want to explain what a gilt and a sow is. Alicia had reminded me of that. For our listeners, a gilt is a pig that has not had any litters yet, whereas a sow has had at least one litter. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, that was for me, that was the biggest thing was, Sherman went right in there and said, "Oh, hello." Hi there, Monica.
So I think it's important too. I think it's interesting to know, with pigs, with cows, with a lot of animals, you're going to know, and even with people, people that have been pregnant once are going to start showing sooner the second time or third or eighth, whatever it is. And animals will do the same. Most animals will start showing signs of not only heat, but pregnancy a little earlier too. And so like, for instance, with cattle, when we know our cows are going into heat, they cycle every 21 days. However, the time when that bull can actually breed that heifer or that cow, heifer has never had babies, cows have had babies. The time is only between 24 hours or 3 days. So it's basically this like window. Some cattle are only in heat for that 24-hour cycle. Some are still available for the 3 days, and you can tell which girls are available. So we had our first two cattle, a cow and a calf pair. We got them back in 2014. We first moved here, and I'll never forget when we had them on the pasture. We first got our very first bull. We rented our bull. And when we got a hold of him, he was just courting these ladies. Now, the younger girl was a heifer. She had never had babies. She was about 18 months old. She should have been in heat by then. We were watching for signs. One of the ways we knew she was in heat was the bull would stand close to her and he would sniff the air. She would pee in little spurts and she would get a little swollen on the back end, but it wasn't super obvious. She would start to move her tail to the side, kind of like Alicia was saying dogs do when they're ready to be hanging out and partying with their boyfriends. And she was the funniest part was the heifer calf was like a teenager, right? She's 18 months old. She's really not a calf anymore. But let me just tell you, when her boyfriend, the bull, got there, she was like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" They ran to the back of the pasture. Like they had been hanging out forever and they knew each other and they were going to go out to a party. She went back. He courted her back there for several afternoons. And then he was done and it was time to court the mama. Well, the mama was not quite there yet. And then you could tell she wasn't quite ready, but he knew she was getting ready, I guess, because he would watch her. He would quickly put his face to her rear end. Animals will also drink the urine of the male will drink the urine of the female. Sounds really gross. This is, we're explicit on here nowadays. Anyway, but we're rated, guys. We're rated. Anyway, they will. I know my boar will drink the urine of my sow. He puts his whole face in there just to make sure she's good to go. And the bull will do the same thing for the calves. I mean, for the cows, he'll make sure. And with our cow, sure enough, after he had bred with the daughter, he ran over, he courted the mama. She kind of stayed away from him for a few days. She ran, she would not stand still. But finally, by the end of the week, she was in cycle for sure. And he was able to do what he needed to do. And of course, 9 long months later, they both had babies within about a month of each other. But it was really interesting to see the difference between once one was in heat, who was brand new in heat, heifer that's never done it before, never had a baby. And she was like, "Hey boy, be my friend." She was ready to go, which I found I found that with other animals here on the farm, they're not necessarily so, usually first timers are a little bit more hesitant. And with some of these calves that I have, they're just ready to rock and roll. So I don't know, maybe I just have a bunch of loose gooses over here on the farm. But needless to say, cows are really interesting with their heat. And I think I mentioned that too. So if you have cattle and you're looking for signs of heat, you're looking for having your bull or a bull that's on the property, they're going to sniff the air. Some female cows will actually mount other cows. I don't know if pigs do that really. Have you noticed that, Rebecca, that females will mount other females?
Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty much, I guess, across the board on that one. And the signs of, the swelling, the things like that, the sniffing of the air. I've seen my boar do that with my sow. And I've seen my bulls do that with my cows as well. They sniff the air. They have this like funny little like mouth thing they do, bulls do. It's so funny to watch. And they'll do a lot of things when they so they very much act very similar. I know the swine and the bovine do. Now, I will say that rabbits are a whole different ball game. Like they'll go, I mean, rabbits are so different, and we breed rabbits too. And it's so weird. I mean, they'll go in, they can start breeding safely at 6 months old. But they can breed as early as 3 months. I mean, if you leave them in cages with one another, they're just going to breed. So you have to be really mindful when you're breeding rabbits. I guess it's just a lot like the pigs. You just got to make sure you separate them so they don't do what they're supposed to do. But needless to say, rabbits are great. You don't really know when they're in heat or when they're cycling. You just kind of have to hope for the best when you put them together and watch them do their business. But it's kind of interesting. And I thought it was really awesome that Alicia mentioned the poultry thing, because that's the same with turkeys, I've noticed too. Have you noticed that with your turkeys, Rebecca, that they will kind of crouch down for the males?
No, not yet. They are still maybe too young. We haven't got any eggs yet. And the female turkeys have not crouched down.
Okay, so this typically not the time of the year we get eggs. And I was thinking this with being in Texas, right? Or would you believe that with this weird weather we've had, I have gotten an egg every day for the past week? I couldn't believe it. I was like, why are y'all laying eggs? Of course, now it's cold again, so they're probably going to be done with me, but it's very strange to see them laying eggs a little earlier this time of year. But poultry does that. So I was really excited that Alicia mentioned that, because that's what I've noticed with our poultry too. Although ducks are a little different. They squat down, but they like to go into the water and have their fun. So if you're thinking that you're just going to catch some really great footage of a couple of your little ducks hanging out in the water, you might want to think again when you're recording it, because you may get a lot of more expecting. I think
there's nothing funny about duck love. Duck love is brutal. And I think that's an important point. We need to bring this up. Excuse me as I choke on my ice cream. If you have your fowl cohabitating, you need to be really careful with your ducks, because your ducks will take advantage of your chickens. And it's very brutal. You will have prolapsed vents, meaning when the duck mates with a chicken, they will actually pull her insides out. It's very brutal. It can be deadly. And I know that it's a touchy subject, but our listeners need to be aware of that if they're just starting in on this homesteading. And, especially as we come around, as we exit winter and we get into spring, there are a lot of families that will get baby ducks or baby chickens for their kids for Easter, and then they don't know what to do with them. And then they find somebody who will take them. And before you know it, you've got somebody. I'll put my hand up. I didn't know immediately, when I first got our farm and I had chickens, and then I adopted some ducks that somebody couldn't keep after Easter. And then it was like, whoa, the ducks are harassing the chickens to no end. And they will pin a chicken down in water, and you're going to end up with a drowned chicken. They will gang up on one chicken. I mean, I could have 20 hens, but I will have the male ducks go after one specific hen, and they will just practically kill her. And so we've had to separate everybody into separate pens now, because we have had prolapse vents. We have had chickens that just look like they've just been put through the ringers, because we had to take the time and the money and investment of building separate pens for them, because it wasn't a harmonious farm like everybody thinks it's going to be. You have to separate them. And I've seen people that say, oh, it's just so sweet. It's so sweet that our duck loves our chicken. No, it's not sweet that your duck loves your chicken.
Ow.
It may look sweet and innocent to begin with, but when your back's turned and you're not paying attention, your chicken is paying the price for what you think is adorable. And it's brutal, and they need to separate them. But having said that, even ducks, when you just have your ducks alone, it is a brutal practice for ducks. So yeah, don't record that and think that it's going to be adorable, because they're very, very, very aggressive. And I'm sorry if I went a little off the edge there, but
Well, I think
no, that was good to know, because the reason I have ducks is only because the people that buy those ducks from Tractor Supply for their kids and think they're going to be pets, and then they are like, oh, I don't what do I do with this big duck? And so they end up at our house.
Mm-hmm.
So, but thankfully, but now we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that. Our ducks have never tried to mount our chickens. We have guineas too. And so the guineas pretty much chase the ducks and harass them. And so the ducks kind of just stay in their own little corner.
Do you have
so maybe that's what keeps the fine balance.
Do you know whether you have male or female ducks yet?
The one duck was laying eggs. The second duck, we only have two. So the one we got last year from somebody, I think it is male.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on it.
Usually it happens when you have an excessive amount of males and there's not enough female ducks to keep them busy as well. I know that just from experience. I've never had any of my male ducks attack my chickens. However, I have always had several roosters in town to keep my girl flock of hens fully protected. And I have seen many days where my roosters will run the ducks off. And at one point I had, I think early last year, I probably had close to 30 ducks and I had quite a few chickens, probably about 20 some chickens. And I don't know, I lose track sometimes. I just have chickens just hatching and I'm like, oh, cool, there's more chickens. I pretend like I don't know that they're there. So when Eric asks me, how many chickens and ducks do you have? I'm like, what's the point? You don't even ask. We don't need to count. You're getting eggs and that's all you have to know. Okay. We're getting eggs and we have lots of them. But I've never had that happen, like Alicia said, but I have heard of it happening. And when I first got ducks, I only got 5. And I remember having someone scare the bejeebies out of me because they were like, oh, your ducks are going to manhandle your chicks and your hens are going to get tore up. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized that I had the proper amount of males and I made sure that I kept the males in check on my end. And because of the amount of roosters, I feel like my flock found that balance. But it's something always, like Alicia said, to keep that in mind. If you're getting those things, make sure you're watching them, you're keeping an eye on them, and make sure you have the proper balance. You definitely don't want too many drakes to your, your hens, because the thing is that in the end, those drakes, those male ducks, they are going to get aggressive. And if you have too many males, they will kill your females, whether it's the chickens or the ducks. They will kill them. We've had that happen before where we had a bunch of ducks and we had a lot of drakes and didn't realize how many drakes we had until we saw one girl getting mounted over and over and over. And I was like, wait, is that the 5th male? Oh no. And I went out there and I put an end to it very quickly. But yeah, you have to keep control of your flock that way. And it's something that sometimes when you have a big farm, or even if you have a smaller farm, if it's just a few of you, I do have a lot of kids, so I do have a lot of hands, but even if it's just me and my husband watching after this particular group of animals, sometimes it becomes a lot for even just us. And I'm like, I can't. I have to make sure that I know what's going on out there with my flock. So any type of poultry, because even my turkeys will kind of beat up on my chickens sometimes. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, that's my food. Back off.
Lisa scared me with that one because she's like, oh, your turkeys, because we had the turkeys in with some chickens when they were smaller. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, oh, the turkeys will, try to mount your chickens and they'll kill your chickens. And I'm like, what? I was like, no, they won't. They're too big. Like, how would they do that? And I'm like, okay, so the turkeys are all by themselves.
Yeah, my flock all runs
together. My poor chickens.
We don't keep them together at night, because what happens at night stays in their own pens. We all keep chickens go with chickens, ducks go with ducks, turkeys go with turkeys. What happens in the dark stays in the dark, and we put them away. However, during the daytime, everybody runs together and they better have their manners. And, we constantly keep eyes on everybody to make sure that they're having good manners, because if they don't, they're done.
And I think it goes back to the responsibility that, Alicia was talking about earlier. Because it's the same thing with pigs. I see people who put all their pigs together all the time, and then they're kind of surprised when they have a litter. I know for me, living in a very cold climate, right now I've got Norman, who's a 4-month-old piglet, out there by himself because I worry about him going in with his mom and his aunt. That they'll squash them a bit because they're fighting and stuff. And so it's like, we were below 0 the other day. So it's like, I don't really want to have litters during that kind of weather, because that's like unnecessary death, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So it's like, we want to have plan litters so that we do the best we can for success. But I think it was Alicia who told me about an episode of a turkey trying to mate a chicken. And I may be remembering this wrong, but that's what I've always done, is kept them separate. I mean, even when we had Julius and Custer in with the two females, Julius was so out of control that all four of them would be in the nesting box while the girls were brooding, trying to mate the girls, to the point where Elizabeth was bare on her back and everything. And now that Julius is out of that coop, Custer's a little perplexed about what he's supposed to do. But so Rebecca might not get any more turkeys, but we found that the coop is very quiet, it's very calm, and we realized what a mistake we made in keeping him in there so long. Because honestly, I'll be honest, we thought, hey, they really could hurt each other, and they're not. So maybe this is normal male behavior. It wasn't. It was really ugly. And we realized what a disservice we did to them. So Julius was removed because Custer was the calmer one getting attacked, and the coop is calm. So we have a calm breeding coop for turkeys now, just to bring it back to breeding.
And when I lucked out, I got one male and then 5 females. No, 5 females.
Well, what Lisa mentions and what Monica mentions are really good points for our homesteaders who are just getting started. Things can change in an instant. Your balance of flock can change. Your male behaviors can change overnight. And so you always have to constantly keep an eye on what's going on, especially with your fowl, and make sure that you don't, like Lisa said, it happens. It's not intentional. It's a learning process. And so you learn, okay, now I need to watch for this, and I need to move this one or move that one. And I had to separate my ducks, and, it's every day. It's a process of watching to see where you might have a break in the symbiosis. And then you make some changes. And I really think that's really true of homesteads. The only thing that's constant is change. You're constantly changing to find that better routine, to find that better setup, to find the better practices that work best for not only you, but for your animals, to keep them happy and healthy. And Rebecca mentioned earlier about goats. Goats, my goodness. You want to talk about some teenagers, you got to keep separated. You'll end up with kids all over the place. And I said earlier, we didn't really breed our animals, and we didn't intentionally, but we did have several sets of kids born here on the farm, because goats will take down fences. They will take down the gates. They will destroy your cattle panels. They'll destroy everything to get to that doe. And so, we no longer have goats either, but we had several sets of kids. So, you have to make those changes and do what's best for you and your animals.
Yeah. And I think, and if it's all right to go back to this, obviously everybody knows I'm the crazy pig lady, but some of the biggest questions that I get from folks, and I get them on Instagram a lot, and I know, Rebecca, you probably do too, is like, number one is, why do you keep them separate? I get that a lot. And of course, number one, I always say, responsible breeding and planned breeding, not that you're having this willy-nilly breeding program. The other thing, though, is I often see people doing this. In fact, I had to educate someone who bought two of our girl piglets, and they bought a boar, was they put them all together. And so I explained to them the issue with that, but I thought maybe you could explain that a little more in detail, because that's a real issue.
It is a real issue. And there's several breeders, or most good breeders, they will not even sell a pig to people when they're trying to buy a boy. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm just gonna get a boy and girl piglet, and they're going to grow up, and they're going to have babies, and it's just going to be happy, this happy farm thing that you have in your mind. But really, a farm is just all rape, constant rape outside. No. But so, and the breeders, the local breeders around in my area will talk to each other like, oh, did you get contacted by so-and-so because this person's trying to buy a piglet from me, etc. And so we'll kind of like blacklist people, because we know, oh, they're trying to do these things that we don't really approve of, or it's not going to be in the best interest of the animals. So a pig can go into their first heat as early as 4 months old. And so that means they can get pregnant at 4 months old. And the boys are pretty much fertile around the same time. Usually we say 6 months, but it can be as early as 4 months. So if anyone that wants to get into breeding, I tell them they need to start with 4 pigs. You need to have 2 girls and 2 boys, or a boy and a barrow, which is a castrated boy. So your boy has a friend, or you could have, 2 barrows and, a girl and a boy. Just some type of mix, because you're going to have 2 completely separate pens. The boys need to be separate. The girls need to be separate. So if you're wanting to breed, you have a 4 pig investment right up front, which is a lot. And yeah, the reason you're going to want to do that is because they can get each other pregnant. And it's not going to be healthy for them. Could you imagine, humans go into their first heat, when they're like 12, and you don't want to be 12 years old and you're not even grown yourself and getting pregnant. That but just puts so much stress on the body. And then she has to have those piglets, and they're probably just not going to be healthy. Or even if she comes to full term, it's just not going to be good. The piglets aren't going to be healthy, and the poor girl's not going to have all the nutrients her body needed to get to adulthood. And so with coonies, just depending on the cooney, really, you can breed them as early as a year old, because people have been really striving to do this 200 pounds in 1 year type of thing to get their pigs to grow faster. So those breeders paying attention to those genetics, and who you're getting it from. So you really need to ask your breeder, like, oh, when is this pig going to be ready to be bred? So those are like the 1 year pigs. Or some of my pigs, I have slower growing pigs. I like them smaller. We do more pets and hobby farm people. So we have smaller pigs. So our pigs, usually I tell people they can't be bred till they're 2 years old, just because they're not mature enough. And coonies will grow till they're 6 years old. So they're really not full adults until 6 years, but you start breeding around 2. Or you'll pen them up. You can, put them together 4 months ahead of their 2 year birthday. So they're having their piglets at 2 years old, is usually what we tell people. But yeah, most people want to go and buy that boy and girl together, and they're going to need a friend, and they're going to have to separate them at like 4 months old. A lot of people will put them together, and there is coonies, pigs will kind of treat each other like boys, brother and sister, and the girl may not go into heat, but do you really want to risk that? And so that's, what you have to tell them. And so we do suggest, if you're thinking about breeding and wanting to get into pigs, starting with 2 females. If you want piglets, you can get 2 female piglets. They could grow up together, be about a year old. Then you could get a boy that's maybe a little bit older, that he can kind of go in with them. He'll be too small to mount them and get them pregnant. And then by the time he's big enough, they should also be big enough. And you could kind of risk it a little, that way. But that would be the easiest way to do it if you only still had like 1 pen and didn't want to do the whole like 4 pigs at a time type of thing. But there's lots of different options, and your breeder should definitely help you kind of figure that out and see what's going to be best for you. Our first pig that we got was she was a gilt. She was almost 2 years old, and then she had like a 6-month-old boy who was not registered. And this is back in 2016, and coonies were really expensive, and we couldn't even afford a registered boy. So she actually let me breed. She gave me a 2-year-old female. She was about to be 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old boy. And we bred those, and we had our first litter, and we sold them, and then we bought a registered boar. And then we found Valentine, the boar that wasn't registered. We found him a home, and he lives around the corner from us, and he's still a big pet. He has a little pink brush that the girls would brush him with, but so that's how we started off. And so, and the breeder just knew, like, she paired us with a female that was going to be old enough by the time, he was old enough, and would give us some time also to like used to having pigs before we had, just babies on the ground.
I think that's a really good plan. And I think that when you talked about having the boar, having the pairs, that goes for a lot of other animals too. I mean, when we talk specifically, and I want the listeners to know that when we specifically talk about pigs, obviously Rebecca really speaks to pigs because she knows this is her jam. She's like, this is her jam. And she really gets this part of it. But what she's saying applies for a lot of your farm animals, a lot of your animals that you care for. A lot of this really applies for that too. And we, just so listeners know, we had a full-size feeder pig that we got. She was a beautiful Hampshire cross baby that she was the daughter of one of our girls, one of our very first sows, and we kept her, and we were just like, oh, she's the best. And someone had gotten rid of a bunch of potbelly pigs, and we rescued them. It was a petting zoo in the area that decided to go out of business, sell their business, and leave all 8 of the potbellies on the property. Just left them. And the real estate agent called a friend who knew my husband and said, hey, we know you have pigs. And he's like, yeah, but not potbellies. They're like, well, they're just running wild on this like acreage. Can you go get them? So my husband took the boys and they were like, let's go catch some pigs. So they went and caught some potbellies. Well, 2 of them were so big, we couldn't even lift them with a tractor. One of them had to be put down immediately right away because it was like old and barely able to. So we couldn't even lift it with a tractor. That's how big this potbelly. It was the size of a full-grown feeder pig. Like, it was massive. It had not been taken care of very well, and it was old, and it was so sad. And then we had all these pigs. Some of them were males, some of them were females, and they proceeded to completely just get each other pregnant because we only had one big farrowing pen and 2 other extra pens. And the 2 other pens were held by our 2 females that were full grown. And so I was like, well, these are full grown pigs. Somehow my little potbelly boar, he was the one lone boar we had there. He decided was not only going to impregnate all the potbelly girls, but he was going to find a way into the middle pen where my younger girl was, who'd never been bred. We were actually set to take her to processing that following few months later. And about a week and a half before her processing date, she put a litter of piglets on the ground, half potbelly, half full-size Burke or Hamp cross. She was a Hampshire and another I think it was a Hampshire and a blue butt cross. So she was a big girl. She must have laid down for this potbelly to finish doing what he needed to do. But it just goes to show you, when a boar wants to get to a sow, he will do whatever he wants to do, or a gilt, because she was a gilt. So she was ready, and he made sure he figured it out. And so she survived a season, and she had the most adorable little piglets, and we sold them, and people just adored them and loved them. And it was a wonderful time. And we were like, yay, that's interesting. He found another home very quickly somewhere else, because at the time we did not want a boar. And so, one of the things is if you are getting into animals and you want to breed them, but you don't want to have a male of that animal, remember, you can borrow. You can find another person, you can borrow, or you can purchase semen. I'm just going to say it. You can purchase the semen, and then you can, Elisa, you wanted to say something? You wanted to AI. That's what you're going to do.
AI.
Yes. You can artificially inseminate. We have a friend that does only AI for a lot of their longhorn herd, because they sell longhorns and they are the purebreds. Now, they have several gorgeous longhorn bulls, but longhorns can get dangerous. And so while they do have several bulls they keep on their large property, they do AI for quite a few because they want specific genetics. And I understand that. And the same thing with a lot of people that have large pigs, they want specific genetics. And by buying the semen and doing the AI, they have more control over it. And one thing you have to remember, if you are going to get a male, if you're going to get a bull, if you're going to get a boar, whatever that male animal is, they will find a way to get to the females. And that's something we have learned the hard way. We have watched bulls take down many fences. We have watched bulls jump over pipe fencing, blow through cattle panels, go through whatever fencing, go over electric fencing. Our bull, our beautiful Solomon bull, our Brangus bull, he's not in our yard. He decided about 2.5 months ago that the girls next door, the Longhorn herd, was very beautiful. And he would like to make sure he went over there to service them. So we also have his friend, another bull. We have 2 bulls on our property right now, with all of our girls getting everybody pregnant. And needless to say, he's over next door. He helped out the Longhorn herd, and thankfully she didn't care. They were fine. He's a low birth weight. He can breed with them and it's safe and everything's good. And
Oh, good. So this wasn't your people that had the whole Longhorn, like the purebred Longhorns.
no, these are purebred Longhorns, but they are okay with this because they're not breeding for stock anymore. They're not, they're breeding for eating. So, but yes, no. But needless to say, he decided to go over there and give them all ladies a talking to. And so he's now finished with what he's doing and he keeps mooing to come next door to his girls over here. But boys will find a way. And we have a video we did earlier this year. We had a beautiful sow. She was gorgeous. We called her Mama June. She was very overweight and we were working on losing weight and getting her situated so she could be healthy and she could have us some gorgeous Duroc babies because she was purebred Duroc and she was absolutely beautiful. She was a show pig. She had won awards and she was amazing. And we were working on her weight loss, and we noticed one day she was starting to have a seizure. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And the boar had basically come after her. He had blown through our fencing 2 or 3 days in a row to try to breed her. And after 2 or 3 days of him constantly trying to breed her, we couldn't keep him separated. He went through all of our fencing. She ended up having seizures and started having problems. And so it's super important. As a matter of fact, it was so dangerous that Eric went outside to secure the fencing yet again for like the third time. He actually had his firearm on him when he was out there because he was actually afraid of our boar. He was like, this is a 550-pound animal that if he comes at me, I'm done. And he warned me when he went out there. He said, just so you know, Monica, I will put him down. If it comes to between me and him, it won't be me. It will definitely be him. And so that's something you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with any male. They will get to their females, especially when they're in heat.
And I think that's a good reminder too, just about, and maybe Rebecca, you could speak to that as we get near the end, but boars are definitely, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but they want to get where they're going to get, right? Because that's what nature designed them to do. And from a safety standpoint, can you provide any suggestions for that? Because I know for me, I have redone how I do things because my boar is getting his tusks in. And so I've redesigned how I do things because I don't want to get between them. Any thoughts on that?
I find that our females are more aggressive.
Mine are floozies.
Yeah, they're the ones that want to get over there to the boys, and the boys are just kind of more laid back. But we use hog panels, and so our Kunis are pasture grazing pigs. So our pigs are out. We've got 6 paddocks. They're out on about 1 acre paddocks that we rotate them through. But then we also have a little corner of hog panels set up where we feed them, and we'll lock them up in bad weather. So if it's really muddy and wet, we don't want them out grazing, they'll be in their pen inside that paddock. So what we do is they know it's feeding time. We teach them to run to their bowls, and their bowls are on the inside of that pen. So we can shut the door and then we feed them once, and we have this, Lisa, we tie their bowls to our fence. And sometimes they get untied, but we just retie a knot on there. And so we can pull the bowl up, we can empty it out if there's water in it. And then we make our pigs sit before we give them their food. So they know, all of our pigs know how to sit. They'll sit and look up at us, and then, we pour their food in. And then they do that all with the fence on the other side. So if they are, running around through you, you're kind of protected by that fence. So feeding time is usually the most dangerous. And you'll see a lot of people that have pigs, they'll build even these little kind of stalls where the pigs will go in and be able to eat and not see each other. And you're always trying to feed them on the opposite side of the fence or on the fence line. So you're not in there with them. As far as getting a boar back in with a female, if something was happening there where they're trying to break down fences and they're being aggressive, nothing is worth you getting hurt or, losing your life over. So if you can't prevent it from happening, never get in between 2 pigs fighting. That's looking to get hurt. So just remember that, you can't control it, everything. Some things happen. If they're going through the fence, I wouldn't even bother with it. I would just let it happen and then get them separated when you can and it's safe. If you have a pig board, I have a pig board. You can buy them on well, I don't know if it's on Amazon, but online, it's just a big heavy duty plastic thing. And we have that. I've actually never had to use it, but I have it on hand in case of emergencies. Our boar got his tusk like stuck in the fence once, and that was probably a real dangerous time because I was thinking maybe he'd get out and like try to charge us or something, but thankfully that didn't happen. But yeah, having that pig board is also helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I will admit I'm one to use whatever I can. And sometimes it's, the rubber bowls with the handles in front of me, and I've done that. It's wrong. I admit it. But that's what prompted me to feed outside the fence, was because my younger boar would irritate my older boar, and the older boar would react. So it had nothing to do with me, but I was getting stuck in the middle, and I was not going to have that anymore. Because our ground is so uneven. It's not like we've got flat pasture. So that's what makes it hard. But I agree though about the girls. My girls are right up against the fence, and I could see how the boys could mate through the fence because they just do their thing. So.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking about all the different animals, especially the pigs, because, Lisa has pigs, I have pigs, Alicia has pigs. But it's been a really good conversation chatting about all the animals in heat. And if you guys have any more questions, if you're listening to this podcast and you do have questions, don't forget, you can check us out on all the different platforms and ask some questions, and you can also check out Rebecca too. But right now it's time to hear a little bit more from our sponsor.
With gardening season in full bloom, Kelzyme certified organic products are just what your garden needs.
From fertilizing your orchards to feeding your soil, Kelzyme's calcium-based fertilizer gives your plants the essential minerals they need to thrive.
Applying Kelzyme to agricultural soils and water has been proven to increase plant and crop yields while making vegetables and grains healthier and more nutritious.
In addition, Kelzyme can help restore the nutrient balance in animals when they are fed plants grown using Kelzyme in both soil and water.
To check out all of Kelzyme's organic products, visit kelzyme.com.
And use our promo code HeyBale for 10% off of your purchase.
Thanks again for joining us today. And another huge thank you to Rebecca for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
To find out more about Rebecca, click on our Linktree link in the show notes below.
And if you're enjoying our third season of the podcast, add us to your favorites by pressing the plus or follow button.
Rating the podcast and leaving comments helps us to grow, and we really appreciate you guys.
We certainly do. Hey, friends, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you on the next week's episode.